thing we're going to discuss is the Oyster River Forest Bridge project. So did everybody get the information that I sent out, the email, the forwarded email? Okay. And I did make copies for
Great.
people who would like to be able to look at these more easily as to. 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, make it fun. 5, 6. Okay. So Sarah and I presented this project last time, and there were a lot of questions that people had, and we sent those questions to Greg, and he sent this back. So I'm going to let the people who had questions start. Did this paper convince did this answer people's questions about that they were concerned about with the bridge? I mean, he gave us some examples of the stone line, of what, so that people had an idea of actually what he was talking about with the stone line area.
So are we, may I
Yep.
ask a question? So are we going to take a look at this as a subcommittee and then vote on how we want to proceed in terms of, the recommendations?
Yeah.
Because when we talked about it previously, there was two options. One was
Right.
to raise the bridge
Right.
and not add a second bridge, which is what's being recommended here. And then there was some talk about adding a second bridge.
Right, adding a second bridge, right. And so that's my question is, does the information in here, a lot of, certainly there's the issue of cost, right? Mm-hmm. And the issue of how much damage you would do to the area right around the stream, building another large bridge. So that was an issue. Also the issue of we don't really know exactly how much water there might or might not be in the future, right? That's sort of not something, we can only go on based on past history. Mm-hmm. And this certainly would give us sufficient additional distance above the water according to past history, right? To solve the problem as we see it now. And having the stone forge and having the water sloughed off into the woods certainly decreases the amount of water that would be actually going down to that area that floods. So more of that would be going off to the side. So that gives us a decrease in water to that area. Because if you look at the road coming down, obviously water is just pouring down there and ending up in the stream, and some of it goes off to the side and down, then you have less water coming that way. Mm-hmm. So the question is, do you put in another large bridge, disrupt the wetland area to a greater extent for something that may or may not be needed in the future? Mm-hmm. To me, that's the question, because this solves the immediate issue. So, well, people who were pushing for the bridge, I want to hear your, not pushing for the bridge,
yeah.
but who question whether or not we should put in the bridge.
Well, I was one of those.
Okay.
And I think this is fine for a solution for what we know is out there now. And Who knows, maybe good forever, depending on what the beavers do,
Yeah.
little guys.
Yeah, and I was also one who thought we should go with the bridge. And I guess we have to talk about, I think as a group, whether we think this is, as Darrell just said, and as you mentioned, Dan, we don't know if there's going to be, well, how should I say, the amount of flooding that would, make this recommendation only last for, a certain number of years.
Right.
But we know that if a bridge is put in, that would more likely be good for a longer period of time. So I guess we have to say, do we want to go with this recommendation, which seems really solid, and just cross our fingers and hope that it's going to be good for, who knows, 10 years, maybe 15 years or so, and then, let the future subcommittee worry about it? Or do we say, okay, we want to put in something that's going to be insurance for maybe, and I'm just making up numbers, 25 years?
Yeah.
So I guess what we have to, balance is the risk of going this route and possibly have flooding in, a shorter period of time in the future versus what the cost is.
Right.
So that's a long-winded way of saying
Yeah.
we basically have to balance cost versus risk.
Right. John?
And probably spreading the water is a good investment. Anything that we can do to spread the water reduces the possibility of higher
Right.
and deeper floods.
Rich, what do you think?
Say it again, sir?
What do you think?
I think I need to get a little bit more up to speed on the issue. I'm catching up on this. Is this the location that you and I have visited, Sarah?
Yeah.
And we had, the beaver dam that was
Yep.
causing that upstream impoundment.
Yep, but there's also downstream beaver impoundment as
Mhm.
well, which is what was actually causing that flooding.
Mhm.
The upstream, I think what the upstream dam is now doing is minimizing the flow in that primary channel.
Mhm.
So there's a beaver dam downstream on that secondary overflow, which is causing the backup in the swale
Yeah.
on the other side of the bridge.
And these dips that were being discussed here, is this the area that I pointed out on that slope, that gravel road, that you would put these drainage swales in and outlet them on the low side, or is this a different location?
No, it's at the bottom of that.
It's at the bottom
hill.
of that,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Right at the very bottom.
Yeah, it's, I think when we were out there, I suggested, it's a little bit of a difficult situation because you got large embankments on either side of the
Right.
roadway. So regardless of what you do, either a swale or a check dam, you're gonna have to outlet it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that would mean that embankment would have to be lowered to allow water to drain off the roadway. And like I said, I'm catching up on this issue,
Yeah.
but that's my recollection when Sarah and I were out there, and we use that, that technique, all the time. Darrell knows, it's a measure that's used on roadway design, swelling water and bringing it to other locations.
Right.
All the time.
And that's what we did on the far side, is putting in two swales
Yeah.
that would decrease the water going into the water
Draining
at the bottom.
straight down the road, but
Yeah.
this is at the secondary
I
flowage
understand.
at the bridge
Yeah.
is what we're
So
trying to
there's-
figure out.
Right.
I think the beaver activity is something that will always be there. We're dealing with that
do.
until they move out, and
Yeah.
that happens. There's some locations that we had a lot of aggressive beaver activity, and we're maintaining it continuously, and then
Right.
different conditions change and
Right.
they leave.
Well, eventually they eat all the trees near the,
Yeah.
near the area. Seriously, they take down the tree,
And then they move.
They remove the trees that they like to eat, and then they say, okay, well, we'll come back later when they grow up again, and
Right.
then,
And
and
they
they
find
leave.
another location.
And then they're 20, 25 years, they're back, because the trees are back. Or not,
I'm sorry, we do use the beaver deceiver at a couple locations. They're not inexpensive, they're You know, I was just pulling up a quote for the last one that we did at Horsehide Brook, and it was about $2,290 maybe 3 years ago, so that's probably gone up. And then there's a maintenance plan that goes along with
Yeah,
that, which is
that's
great.
it.
You know, Best Way Wildlife is who we've worked with on that.
Yeah.
And it's about a $400 cost annually that they'll maintain that, so they'll remove debris. I don't know, when we were there, the upstream impoundment didn't look like a candidate for a beaver deceiver. It just wasn't deep enough or large enough.
Yeah.
Possibly, you know, some type of a leveling culvert would work there.
Yeah, and that's what the trouble with culverts, of course, is that they can be dammed by the beaver. So again, you know, you have a plan where someone comes in and cleans that up for you, but I don't think, that just adds to every year to the cost of the program. I think we're better off with something that we don't have to maintain in that way.
Well, you could also just, you know, notch the dams, you know, when they're built. You can continue to maintain and notch them and allow water to flow.
Yeah, although in a conservation area, that's not the number one thing we try to do. We try to let the animals, as long as we can get around them. And it is, you know, in your case, when you're talking about roads, that's not a viable alternative, just letting them be.
It's tough.
Yeah, whereas ours is a, you know, a pathway for people who can, you know, walk through water on occasion, so.
Yeah, you could find the right elevation to notch that dam so it kind of still maintains some type of an impoundment for the beaver activity, yet is notched at an elevation that allows the bridge to still be passable.
Yeah.
So, just as sure, we're looking at all the alternatives, having worked with a landowner across the river in Maine, they go through a beaver removal process, and it costs X number of dollars to move the beaver out, and I don't know whether that's what the cost of that is, but if you're paying $2,500 to put a beaver deceiver in and $400 a year, you know, how many beavers can you actually move on a regular basis and come out ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have actually a funny thing that, the lake that I'm at in Maine, they have beavers put in the dam, and they have removed several beaver now, and they have still taken down the dam.
Beaver removal is not,
And the
like,
dam has
anybody's
come back
witnessed beavers, like.
almost before they could put out the announcement that the beaver had been removed.
I know. I mean, like, literally, you've got juveniles moving every spring. Like, within a year, you will get new beavers back.
Yeah,
It's a
this is about a
constant, you'd have
month.
to trap them out every year. It's not really a.
Well, given
It's like-
X
Is that
number of
really-
dollars a year for maintenance and, raising bridges, the question is, you know, how much do you spend?
Yeah.
Is it $1,000 a year to remove the beavers, or is it $400 a year to
Well,
remove the beavers?
Sometimes that's the only viable solution, and
Right.
you're not able to, this is my understanding, that removing and relocating beavers is not something that's allowed. So it's really a trapping program.
You can't,
Yeah.
if you move a beaver, they don't survive because
That's right.
it's not
They-
their
they-
territory.
Right.
So
Beaver removal is not
is,
moving. It's, you know.
It's
like-
killing.
It's
It's killing.
There is also the issue of the reputation of both this subcommittee and the Town Conservation Commission.
yeah.
There are probably town residents who would raise quite a big concern over that.
Yeah, and I don't think that I mean, you know, obviously this is a problem for us and we need to do something to solve it, but it's not, we've managed, right, to get by a couple of years with off and on flooding, so it's not, you know, like a road where then you have accidents, and this is, you know, not to that level of seriousness. I think, which is why I think they're coming up with a plan that, I'm not sure that putting in the money for a bridge makes sense. I'm just not sure putting that kind of money, and if you think about some of the other areas in the town and in, just our conservation areas that also need some work, it doesn't make sense to put that much money and effort into a bridge if we have a fairly good solution, that is not as expensive.
Well,
I-
Speaking as
Go ahead.
a member of the town council, looking ahead to next year, I mean, we have 3 units of employees that we're renegotiating contracts for, and I don't see any big developments coming in to increase the tax base. So next year is going to be a really tough year, I think, for the budget. And I don't see, thinking of the town council, I don't see any money being
Right,
put in the budget for a bridge out there next year. I
Yeah.
just don't see it.
yeah.
So I want to ask Darrell, just to follow up on what you just said. So do you see money in the budget to do what Greg is recommending on page 3, to raise the current bridge a foot, and then to raise the tread beyond that, and not put in the leveling culvert? And
Well, I think we have money to do the bridge in this year's budget.
Yeah,
okay.
And so that's not an issue, I don't think.
Okay.
But looking ahead to next year, I think it may be an issue.
So just as a question, how does that work? If we have money in this year's budget, but the work's not done until next year?
Then that money goes to, well, Todd can teach,
It
tell better than
yeah.
I, but it doesn't roll over to next year.
That's what I was wondering.
It goes into the unexpended fund, and it would have to be reallocated next year. And I don't think that's very likely.
You don't think it's very likely?
I think it's unlikely that it would be reallocated next year.
Oh, okay.
So use it.
yeah.
It's in the
yeah.
budget, it's there to be used. Use it.
So to me, it makes sense to raise the bridge, the existing bridge a little bit, and take care of the tread, and deal with these broad-based dips in a couple of places to help reduce the flow, and see where we are, and then as Greg recommends, see where you are, and then see whether you need to put the culvert in a solution. And that should get us a decade down the road, and then maybe we'll have some development in the town and raise some money. We can put
Yeah,
another
that'd be
bridge
great.
in if we feel like we're going to need another bridge. But it would seem worthwhile to see whether this lower cost alternative works. That would be my approach.
Yeah, I would agree with, Ted stated that very nicely. I think when I was out there on the site walk, I thought, gee, this could all be taken care of with one giant bridge. Yeah. But after reading Greg's proposal and knowing that, we're working with so many unknowns of, are the beavers going to leave? Are they coming back? What's going on? It's a moving target. And so taking a stepwise approach of raising the existing bridge, putting in fill, makes sense to me, and just kind of taking it one step at a time to see how the animals respond. They were there first. Play nice together.
Yeah. Okay. Could I have well then,
May I ask?
yeah,
may I ask-
yep.
So isn't Greg suggesting this culvert in place of a second bridge?
well,
Isn't
No.
that's not what he's saying here?
No. He's saying, in a couple of years, if it doesn't work, then maybe you should consider this, the bottomless culvert.
So what's the treatment to the wet area just beyond the bridge in this?
The stone line
Stone.
forward. Yeah. Am I not right,
yeah,
Sarah?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is correct. Yeah, the stone line.
And is that what, like, spreads the water?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It gives a solid bottom that
Bottom.
people can walk on.
People can walk on,
Got it.
yeah.
And raises the tread as well.
So the suggestion is to raise the existing bridge a foot.
Yes.
put in this stone line dip
Right.
and still add, last time we were talking about, water bars? What would,
Right.
Yes.
adding water
Two
bars?
Two water bars on that side.
Two water bars?
Yeah. One on
And
each, to
one
each
water
side.
bar, they're going in different
Yeah.
directions. So one adds water upstream and one
Yes.
adds water
Yeah.
maybe
one-
downstream.
One at the top, it would flow into the, if you're walking towards the bridge, would flow into the right-hand area before the trees, right before the trees. And then the second one would be further down, would flow into the left hand. So it would be one to the right, one to the left.
And that's to deal with the erosion coming down
Yeah.
the hill.
The erosion and, yeah, just the volume of water.
So then, there's no, Greg hasn't like ballparked the cost
He has,
for
yeah.
this. He has?
Yeah,
For this?
That was
uh,
sent in a prior email.
For the stone line dip, he put a price in for that?
It was,
Can you review what that was, so we know what we're working with?
I should have had that, I should have sent that too.
I'm sure everyone here remembers. what it was.
And can I ask a question?
Yeah,
It was like 2,200.
yeah.
So the stone line dipped in relation to the bridge, when you're raising the bridge, obviously you're raising it a foot. How are you dealing with the approaches on either side of that bridge? Is it a step, or are you doing a
No.
gravel approach?
Yes.
So you're just gonna
Yeah.
raise it and slope
Yeah.
it, and then your stone line dip, because it's coming back to me, the impoundment, I remember the beaver dam on the upstream side, it was holding back the impoundment, but the way the topography works there, it was actually coming around the
Yeah.
beaver dam and
Right.
flooding that out
Yeah.
on
Yep.
the side, I guess, as you're walking
Towards the-
up the
yes.
slope.
Yeah.
And where would that stone line dip be in relation to where the flood, where it was coming around the beaver dam? Is it,
Right
are
there.
you basically trying
yeah.
to align that?
Yeah.
Right there?
Yeah,
So you're, I think you probably just want to think about that approach, you know, on the other side, it's easy. The approach, you know, you don't have the topography works. On that side, you're going to have a fairly steep incline, because otherwise you're going to have an approach that goes right into that stone line dip. And if it's beyond the stone line dip, then you're going to have that dip within that kind of triangle on that approach. So I think you'll probably have to just think that through a little bit and how that might work. Do you know what I mean, Sarah?
No, so you're talking about you're worried about the steep descent into the stone
Yeah,
line
if you
dip?
have, on the side that you're going back up the hill.
Yeah.
I don't remember what compass direction that was, but.
Yeah.
East.
Is that east? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you want probably a 3-to-1, 4-to-1, you know, on that approach, so it's manageable for people to walk. And if that extends beyond that, you know, area where you're trying to put that dip, that can be a little bit awkward as you're coming down that slope, and then you have a dip
Yeah.
right there, and then it continues.
Yeah,
So just gotta think that through. There might be some additional shaping that's gonna be necessary to carry that water maybe beyond that approach. You know, so the stone line dip is at the end of the approach rather than halfway through the approach.
yes, yeah, gotcha.
It-
Is it, yeah.
Isn't
just-
the stone
just-
line dip just like 15 feet beyond, east
Yeah.
of the existing bridge, right?
Yes, yeah, right.
And I don't remember exactly, but the grade kind of,
It starts
doesn't it
It does
coming
get
continue
steep
relatively
pretty
level for a
quickly,
while
though.
before?
Rich is right, it does get, it does get steep
Yeah.
Yeah.
soon after that dip.
Yeah.
But
So
that
he's just-
area where the water's coming around the beaver dam.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's quite 15 feet. I think
Yeah.
it's closer to the bridge than that.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. You're gonna need to shape that
And you
with the
could maybe
machine.
even just add a little bit more fill on the far bank side
Possibly, yeah.
so that you can raise that up a little bit. So Rich is just suggesting we kind of smooth that over a little bit.
Yeah. It's gonna
So
need some
that you're
field
not
fitting, I
getting a-
guess, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
It feel like a step.
If-
It's a little bit smoother, which
Gravel.
means just it might mean bringing in a little bit more material.
Some gravel, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Like I picture this stone line dip being at, wouldn't it be at about, or the elevation of the raised bridge?
No.
No.
It's gonna be down, it's gonna be
It'll be
down a
down.
foot.
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it
carry
gives
that
you,
water.
so there could be some water in it you'd be walking through, so it's
Yeah.
not putting it necessarily above all of the water.
And you don't want a big step down.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
Plus your upstream
Yeah.
elevation of that stone line dip, obviously you'll want to slope that so the water carries down. So there'll be some work with the machine out there that you'll have to
Yeah.
kind of fit it.
Well, I think there's quite a bit there's quite a bit of gravel coming in, or materials. So it's a good point, and we'll make sure that we touch base with Greg. So the water bars for the erosion control is $1,200. And then to raise the tread on the far side of the beaver, so this is the stone-lined swale that we're talking about, is $2,000 to $2,500 with delivered stone and gravel and labor. And then to raise the bridge, the 12 inches, and he suggested replacing the decking with pressure-treated lumber would cost $5,000 to $7,000 total in material. And the recommendation was he's going to have to remove the decking anyway to safely remove the top framework. And I mean, Rich, you know this probably better than I do, or other engineers, but essentially he said if you keep the decking on there, when you lift that up with a piece of heavy equipment, there's a lot of torque, and you can end up damaging the base of that bridge. And so by removing the decking, you eliminate that torque, and so you can, it better maintains the shape and stability of the support structures of the bridge. So he recommended removing the decking anyway, so you might as well replace it, essentially.
So around $10,000.
So, Sarah?
Yep, and then we also discussed the hardening off of the approach through the fields. And that's just because, as probably Rich's crew knows, and that can get really muddy and wet because it's poorly drained soils. And like when Rich's guys go out there to do tree work, like they'll leave these really deep ruts in the wet spots along that access way through the fields. And so the hardening off of that approach was $5,000 to $7,000 for the stone and gravel and labor. So that was kind of the third component of this
And probably some
project.
fabric also. They'll put some fabric down before they put the gravel.
Yes, yeah,
Okay. Otherwise, it'll just pump up all the clays and you'll lose the gravel very quickly.
yeah.
I think it's a vocabulary challenge for
Oh.
me with all of these terms.
Okay.
But, so, there's raise the bridge, has a number of $5,000 to $7,000. Raising
Yes.
the tread, which I assume is the approaches to the bridge, bringing in gravel and material to place and compact is $2,000 to $2,500.
Yeah,
that
that's
right?
on the east, that's for the east, the work on the east side. That was
Okay,
that was the cost for putting in that stone swale and raising the tread.
Is
so
this-
that instead of a bridge.
is that the same as a stone line dip?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah,
Stone
it's all
line
right,
dip.
because all these things may have a number of different,
Yeah. And you're,
terms.
and I misspoke, because there's actually 4 components, not
But
3.
But the fourth component wasn't in the original, that estimate, was it? I mean, we have all of these estimates, so that, and he gave them all separately, so that if we wanted to do one, and the 3 most important are obviously the ones we've just spoken about, right? The 2 drainage dip, the 2 drainage on the
The water bars?
the water bars,
Or-
sorry,
Or,
water bars.
okay.
Yeah, I'll get the names right. The first, you're not looking at this, I am. Okay, so raising the bridge, raising the tread, and installing the 2 water bars is what we've been discussing, okay? And that, I believe, is around the 10,000, right?
Exactly.
And then on top of that, the thing we could consider is the 5 to 7 for the road that's the approach, which has been something that the conversation started actually with the Conservation Commission when we were buying the property, that area was going to need to be hardened because of all the wet. And that would be on top of, so that we would have to raise money to do. That isn't included in,
Right.
I don't believe, in what's in the budget. So the 5 to 7 is, because they're out there, it might be less expensive for us to do it, but that is something that we would have to raise money for. And I don't think we have to include that in today's, decision on the bridge, but that is another component of the project that we eventually are going to have to do.
So what we're talking about today, there's no stone line dip in this conversation then?
Yes, there is.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay,
The first
so-
3 is stone line dip,
Well,
water bars, bridge raise.
And then there was raise the tread.
That's the same as the stone
So-
swale.
That's a.
Raising the
so we have-
tread.
we-
We have 2 different words here we're using, and I apologize.
Maybe
I mean,
3.
I didn't. Maybe 3, yes. But there are 3 components, the ones we've been speaking about, that we're talking about in terms of the amount of money that's in the budget. And then there is a fourth that we could think about, but we'd have to, and obviously think about it in time before he did the project, because that would be something that they'd want to do while they were there. But we also would have to think about how we'd raise the money for, where we would get the money from. So that hasn't really been something that I've concentrated on in terms of this. Okay. So, sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, well, I'm still not sure what to call all of these things. If I'm writing
You're
this
writing up
down.
the minutes?
I don't know, like, I have
Okay, well, raising
stone
the,
line dips.
yeah,
I
stone
have
line dip is
swales,
what
I
you're
have
going to-
water bars.
yeah. So you're going to raise the tread by putting in a stone line dip, right? I mean, that's essentially, when he talks about raising the tread, he's talking about what he's using the stone line dip for.
Right.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If you look at the minutes from our December meeting, and there's a picture, there's a map, and there are call-outs for different locations. So there's a call-out that says location of proposed water bars to reduce trail erosion. If that would be number 1, which is the water bars, I believe. Number 2 would be the high water area east of existing bridge. That was the stone swale / stone line dip / something else, number 2. And then number 3 would be raising the existing wood bridge, label that number 3. And then I think what Ann is talking about, which is separate, would be number 4, and that call out is proposed hardening and drainage improvement on 400 feet of trail. And that, is that correct, Ann, that you're saying that that's separate? That's
It's separate from what is in the budget.
in the budget.
Yes,
right?
Kelly.
And-
So, Sarah, you had mentioned at one point there were grants available. Would grants funding cover item 4 from any sources you're aware of?
That's a good question.
GBRPP? Great Bay
Well,
Resource?
it would be, I think you could use GVRPP for, I think, the bridge replacement. The hardening of the
Yeah,
woods road, it's a little bit harder sell, I would think, as far as grant funding.
But so with these grant funders, do they require a cash match?
So Great Bay Resource Protection,
Partnership.
protection
Partnership.
partnership. They do, but it is they cover quite a bit of the cost. I think it's 75%, and then the town has to do a 25% match. But that could be covered with staff time. But it's direct staff time on the site. It's not, they don't cover like the planning process. It
Because-
also you can also count volunteer hours
But
towards that.
what I'm thinking is that if item 4, if you write a grant now covering 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can strategize about what you want the grant to pay for and what you want the town to pay for. So the match could be the less desirable item. But you have to do that now because most grant funding will not retroactively pay for work. So I'm
Yeah.
just
It's a-
saying maybe think about now how a grant could be submitted that would include that last portion.
Yes, yep, it is at $10,000 max. It's 5 to 10,000 are the project range for that grant funding.
Yeah, we'd have to find out what's the next period.
Yeah, which is, they happen twice a year, in
Yeah.
the spring and in the fall.
So is that price range, what they're willing to put in, maxed at 10, or the project total is 10?
Their price range max at 10, so project
Okay.
total could be
So-
12,500 or something like that, or.
The overall project is 1 through 4.
Right.
The cost is 15 grand. However it gets allocated out, you're home free, right? That's sort of what you're
Yes.
suggesting.
Yeah, yep, yeah, it's not a bad approach, yep.
So is there really, so can I just recap? There's 2 check dams that we're
Yeah.
looking to put in. There's 1 stone line swale. There's raising the bridge a
Right.
foot, building the approaches for those bridges, and there's hardening the approaches with fabric and gravel.
Right.
No,
Those
Yes.
are,
it's not hardening the
That's not-
approaches.
That's
It's
not
hard-
included in the.
That's
in the
outside of
cost.
the scope.
That's outside.
Right.
It's
so the-
hardening the roadway getting to that area.
It's
That's what I
hard
mean,
to-
that's what I mean, sorry, yeah.
That's-
I used the
That's
word
on top
approaches.
of, so the total
So-
project,
so-
this would be like 15 to 17.
Okay, and from a permitting standpoint, is this all just under trail maintenance?
No, so it does require a wetlands permit. That's
Okay.
correct.
So you'll need, a base plan, you'll need to have to develop, some survey out there. Are we looking at soft costs including in that budget also, the whole permitting process?
So, it could potentially fall under trails.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Use permit, and those are, as long as there aren't any rare, threatened, or endangered species found nearby, and those are fairly minimal.
I was gonna ask, have they done a data check on this yet?
There is an old one in the file, but that's really more related to Spruce Hole Bog,
Oh, okay.
which does contain endangered species. But not this particular area, I don't believe. There is a report, although it's old, and they have to be done within 1 year of any permitting process. So even if you have done it, you've got to re-request it, a new data check.
I think that's one of the first questions is what's the
Yeah.
permitting track on this? If it's going to be a trail permit, as Sarah points out, it's much more streamlined than if it's a full permit. And then I'm wondering how you're going to access both sides of that bridge. Are you using swamp mats or something to put that down so you can get an excavator on the other side to build the dam, or check dams
I think those,
and the approaches?
I don't know what kind of equipment you're planning on using, but the current bridge actually can take heavy equipment. It was designed to have logging equipment be able to cross.
No?
So,
But it's going to be gone.
well,
Right,
it
you're gonna
depends
lift
on
it out,
what they, it
and then
depends
you're-
on what their, which
Yeah, maybe
part
they
of the
can do-
project they do first.
Right, but I'm saying if you're working on, you're gonna have to access this from both sides. If you're
Right.
putting the approach in and the bridge comes out, you're still gonna have to get to both sides. Maybe you can sequence it so there's minimal amount of work, but I think you're still gonna need, after the bridge is gone, you're still gonna have to get equipment to the other side.
Yeah, that, and, Greg has done, a ton of these projects for recreation as well as forest harvesting.
Yeah.
So he's on top of that.
Yeah. Forest harvesting is a different animal. There's a lot of exemptions in forest harvesting.
Yeah. Well, right, yes, compared to town work. That's because
Exactly.
it's seen as, it's temporary.
Yeah.
And, and all those mats come right out and it's, minimal
But
impact.
it
There's
wouldn't be
still
a problem
erosion and other
to
issues,
put
yeah.
some, some cribbing in there to be able to access it while the bridge is out.
Yeah.
But the permitting, I don't think is going to be, it's not going to be inexpensive. There's going to be costs associated with that as well.
could be.
So, a quick question. We talked about harvest access across the bridge. How much forest is up on the other side of that bridge? We're looking at 100 acres, we're looking at 10 acres,
That is a good question. I don't know if I've looked at that question recently, just because there was Charlie Moreno wrote the forest management
Right.
plan, and there was a harvest done out there. I don't know, I would say during Ellen Snyder's time, so maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So I don't anticipate anything.
right. So
Anything too
kind of where I'm
recent?
headed on this is, if there's only a few acres up on the other side of that, and the bulk of the managed forest is between where we're talking about and the road, just designate that as a reserve and you don't have to worry about a bridge or any kind of a crossing. It needs to,
Well, but
Well, but you do need it to
manage the
manage the
property.
fields and mow, and mow the
okay,
trail.
is that.
But you're
equipment is-
saying heavy equipment, do we need to manage it for heavy equipment?
I guess my question is that, the mowing equipment, is it on par with a multi-ton skidder?
Well,
Right.
but I-
Mechanical, it's
yeah.
not. They're two different kinds of equipment, and I'm just wondering, maybe it's not even germane to the conversation today, but if it's just a handful of acres up there, there's no point in worrying about having it capable of moving forestry harvesting equipment across.
Yeah, I don't think that was so much forestry harvesting as, NRCS has an easement over it and that it's the NRCS easement work in terms of maintaining the
Okay.
field as a shrub land that we were doing the bridge for.
Okay,
That was
that's fine.
it was their management, not so much we need it for mowing, but it's their management of that field that we were managing that for.
And that's a mowing thing, and that's a different kind of equipment than
Yeah.
a harvesting operation.
Yeah. Any other?
As an
Yeah,
addendum to this, most people are fascinated with beaver ecology and anything to do with beaver behavior, things of that sort. It's a good opportunity to put in a little bit of signage there explaining that, and that can be done on low cost or maybe no cost to the town. And also put something into the mapping, so people get information about the beavers. It is, for many people, a fascinating subject.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
okay, so, yes,
Well, as far as raising the bridge goes for the $5,000 to $7,000, does that include raising the approaches?
Yes,
It does?
yeah.
Thank you.
So in the interest of moving the project along and knowing that there is going to be adequate funding, which is already in the budget, maybe we should consider not thinking about the trail hardening at this time, but just going with numbers 1, 2, and 3. And that's something that we could take a vote on. If everybody approves it, we could just move ahead with it and then tackle the trail hardening, at a later date, thinking about, how to raise the money for it, if grants are available. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but grants don't work that way. You have to, what I would suggest is considering 1, 2, 3, and 4, preparing a grant. If you don't get the full funding, then fine, you don't do item 4. But you can't ask a funder to fund something retroactively. And you want to leverage what you're already putting into items 1, 2, and 3. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do now, yeah. So if I could paraphrase what you said, you're saying that the only chance we would have of getting a grant would be if 1, 2, and 3 is included.
You got to figure out how you're going to leverage, the matching funds, and you might not get it, but you try. And if you don't get it, you just adjust your project accordingly.
So what is the time frame from the time that you apply for a grant until the time that it might get the money?
I don't know. It depends on individual funders.
Okay.
Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes there's only one deadline a year.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that if the money is only allocated for 2025 and it wouldn't carry over, then we'd have to make sure that if we are going to wait until we know if we have grant money, that we would have to be sure that would be done in time to,
But you
to
can
get
also.
the project done in 2025.
But the grant funders also ask for the length of the project, so you can put in a long lead. I mean, there are ways of finessing this.
So the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership trail funding grant is usually fairly quick turnaround. You usually find out within, say, 6 to 8 weeks. But they have a certain period of time that you have to expend that money. So, but it's usually, I think it's about a year and a half time frame. So you can't leave it hanging. You've got to complete the project within that time period. But for example, there's a kind of open project on Long Marsh Preserve right now that we have funding from Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership along the Yellow Trail, and that crossing, like it can, as long as it's completed by the end of this year, you can get that funding. So that's how that works, at least for that grant.
Would that prevent you from going for another grant if?
No,
Okay.
nope, not at a different location or a different project.
So I guess my response is include 1 through 4. There's no loop, there's no,
Downside.
yes, thank you.
Good word.
Right.
And the money and the funds do become retroactively too. So if you've spent money in March towards this project, and you do get the grant funding, they'll reimburse you. It's like good for 2 full years, at least with that grant. Unless they change their terms, but which they could.
Yeah.
But I don't foresee that happening.
I have a question for Todd. So the budget currently includes $10,000 plus or minus, and a grant process would take X amount of time. And so maybe we don't hear, worst case scenario, till like October. As long as there's a contract signed with somebody and work has begun, the money doesn't evaporate back to the town
We
fund.
would then encumber the funds
encumbered,
into the
okay.
next year.
So, add to your thing, there is some time there to look for a grant, receive the money. If we don't get it, there's still time to contract and have the money encumbered in the current budget without losing it. I guess that's my point.
And do one,
And
two,
then we
three.
could do 1 through 3 if we don't get the grant, as long as we have a contract signed.
And you can actually talk to the funder now to see what they think about the project, and they might just say, don't bother. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and we would probably find out by the end of June for this round, for the spring round. So by the end of June, we would know if we apply with the GBRPP, if we get it or not. So that's like still halfway through the year.
Are there other funders besides the Great Bay Protection?
It's hard because a
For-
lot of
yeah.
funders don't fund towns.
Yeah,
A lot of
and-
funders only fund private organizations. So it is more difficult to get a grant for this kind of work on town property.
I mean, it makes sense to explore the grant possibility. We don't really have anything to lose.
Right.
So
Okay.
should we have
So-
Veronique follow up on that?
Yeah, and do you want to then propose the full 4 parts of the plan? And then, you know, with the understanding that if we can't get funding that would allow us to do that, then we would just not do the 4th portion of the plan.
Right.
No.
Okay, I need a motion for our initial plan, not for the backup.
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Good luck.
He has to write it down, so we'll let
And I'm gonna reverse Gail's numbering a little bit, but item 1 would be to raise the bridge 12 inches with the approaches, and that's inelegantly worded, at a cost of $5,000 to $7,000. Add a stone blind dip, or phrased in another way, a stone ford crossing east of the bridge at a cost of $2,000 to $2,500. Add 2 water bars or swales further east at a cost of $1,200. And then 400 feet of road improvement at a cost of $5,000 to $7,000 for a total range of between $13,200 and $17,700.
Okay. All right.
Should we make a part of that motion? I don't want to tell you your motion, but to request Veronique to apply for
Yeah,
a grant?
Sure,
Dependent on.
sure,
yeah. Search out funding possibilities.
yeah.
Yes. And we'll ask Veronique to seek funding possibilities
Okay.
Okay,
through a grant application. And is it through this Great Bay? And what's the name of
Resource.
that? Great Bay
Resource Protection
Partnership.
Partnership.
Resource. Okay, thank you.
All right. Can I have a second?
Sure.
Okay, Ted, second. Okay, then we'll take a roll call. Do we have any comments on the proposal? Yes.
I think that was a great discussion. Just to go over all the possibilities and come to, a really solid conclusion with a lot of people participating.
Okay. So then we'll take a roll call vote.
Marty Gorham votes aye.
Ted Howard, yes.
Mirta Janos, yes.
Sorry, that's okay. Carolyn Singer, yes?
Gail Carey, yes.
Ann Welch, yes.
Darrell Ford, yes.
John Carroll, yes.
Neil Slepian, yes.
Okay. So it's a unanimous vote.
That's okay.
Yep.
All right, so we'll move on to the next.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Of Veronique. I don't know if, we said you're charged with investigating this. I don't know what kind of a workload that is. Do you need help? Carolyn has a lot of experience. Sorry for volunteering you, Carolyn. But if you need some help, I'd be happy to lend
Yeah, thank
help.
you.
And Carolyn, you seem like you have wonderful experience in this. So if that would help move things along.
Yeah, great, thank
is
you.
a
Yeah, I'll
question.
contact them first and find out, what's the next submitting period and all that, and then get back to you. Yeah.
If that
thank
would
you.
be of help.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next agenda item is actually a stewardship coordinator update, and maybe first you want to just, give a little bit of information about yourself again. So that now you are officially in stewardship.
Yeah, hello, so I'm Veronique Luddington, and I come from the Great Bay National Estuarine Reserve, where I was the Assistant Stewardship Coordinator there. So in the past few weeks, I've tried to familiarize myself with the town lands and the different stewardship and management plans. So I've done a lot of reading and a lot of walking for a start. I started working on the annual town monitoring of the easements. I did the Oyster River Forest, and I'm in the process of doing Baudet with Gmail, helping me identify issues from the New Hampshire Fish and Game. I met with Steve, so I got all set up with GIS, and we're excited to work together on that. There's definitely a lot of opportunities to map invasives and do a lot of good work for the town and for also the public-facing side of things. So I'm excited to work on that. And right now there was the holiday, so I'm trying to connect with all the partners from the town. So I have just met Rich today, and Sarah's been helping me. We work properly together, and so I'm just trying to get familiar with all the different partners and their roles, so I can define more what my role is exactly. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. And do you want to are there any other things that you did? Well, you did the easement on Oyster River. So
Yes.
that would be an update.
And I walked the Thompson Forest yesterday. It's imported the map just and took some photos of some things that have been done there. I walked Stallworthy, so a lot of things to be done there. So I need to try to find out who does what, things like that.
Yeah.
And I walked Powder Major, the part that's on the town of Durham, which is actually pretty small, the 22 acres. So.
That's one we don't think about an awful lot.
Oh, yeah.
And did you, I know that you ended up coordinating with Sewell Enterprises, but the mowing of the
Oh, yes.
other
the
portion
second-
of Thompson
Yes, the second
Forest
half of
did
the,
get
yes, did get
done
done. I was out there the
this
day
fall.
they did it, yeah.
Yeah,
We were lucky that we had one good day where it wasn't raining, it wasn't snowing, it was cold and the ground was hard. And you could get out there and mow it so that because I went by as he was doing it, and it's really no damage to the property, so that was good. Because right before and right after it wouldn't have worked.
I have an unusual suggestion. There's a great deal going on in the Canadian province of Quebec, which is reported in French only, because it's not a bilingual province. The woodlands of Quebec are very similar, particularly in the eastern townships, are very similar to New England, ecologically speaking, and so forth. And from time to time, you might consider taking a look at what goes on there and seeing if there's anything of interest that could be reported here for the betterment of New England, for the betterment of Durham, in these same woodlands, the ecological systems and so forth. It is remarkable how much goes on in Quebec that is not reported in English, and therefore is not available to most of us very readily. So I just make that as a suggestion.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You do speak French, right?
Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments for Veronique, we will move on to the next trail markings in Stevens Wood. Neil,
that would be
you
me.
just wanted to,
Over the last couple of weeks, I've had two people come up to me in just, regular discussions. One is a relative and one is a friend, who said that they kind of got a little bit turned around in Stevens Woods because they felt that the trail markings weren't really too clear. So they both actually pointed to the same place. I didn't make copies of maps, but I can describe it. So when you start off on the green trail from the parking lot off of Orchard Drive, you follow the green trail, and then there's a little yellow trail to the left that makes a short loop down to the river, and then it rejoins with the green trail. And then from there, you should be able to follow the green trail to where there's the blue trail that makes the big loop around. So the point where both people got lost was when the yellow trail by the river rejoins with the green trail, and they knew that they were supposed to turn left to connect with the blue trail, but they felt that the markings weren't really adequate, and they both ended up kind of stumbling around on the UNH property on what was really kind of a disused trail, and eventually found their way back to where they were supposed to be. So there's something in that area, by the reports of these two folks, that's not really clear as to where to go to follow the green trail to get to the big loop.
Yeah, that sounds like it might be happening more on the UNH land, and I do know that there is a unauthorized footpath in that location that I know Steve is trying to discourage people from using, but I think people can end up on that trail.
That's exactly what happened.
yeah, I think that's actually
And
happened to me.
so, what? Has that
I
happened to
think that's
you?
happened to me too, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, yeah, I wonder what it is that,
Yeah, and
Maybe we could
I'm
talk
trying
to
to think of the
Steve.
last time I was out there, but yeah, I think it might be a question for Steve. So I will,
Oh,
actually,
okay.
Veronique, I'll have you, we'll coordinate, I'll have you reach out to Steve, and we can, I can tell you how to do that.
okay, so is,
Get you acquainted with Steve Eisenhower, because there's a lot of, you'll work with him.
so is that junction actually on UNH land then? Or is it, because I'm looking at a map, yeah, it says McDonald Lot UNH.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
That's
I guess it's
UNH.
Yeah,
UNH
so
property.
you're not on Stevens Woods for very long on the green trail. As soon as you cross over that stone wall and hit the little bridge on
Yeah.
the green trail, that you're on
It's
UNH
UNH.
land.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah, so that, so my guess is that that it is definitely on UNH.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Veronique.
and while we're on issues at parks, did you want to bring up the dog issue that we had reported?
Oh, sure. We had a expression of concern from a woman who was walking her dog at Wagon Hill Farm, and she indicates that there was a man with another dog named Sammy who has on 4 occasions now attacked her dog. And so she doesn't...
Off-leash.
Off-leash, during off-leash hours. So she's not sure this person's name, and the police department has assigned an officer to follow up with her to see if we can find more information.
Right.
But it is a concern. We want dogs off-leash to certainly not attack others and be under their owner's control.
Have you talked with Wayne? Because like Wayne's out
Oh,
there
yeah.
every day
Yeah.
and knows, and brings his dogs and knows all the other dogs that are out there.
Yes, we've let Wayne know, and Lynn Howard and Scott Latorno, who are part of Seacoast
Yeah, yeah.
Energy, and none of them recognize all we have is the dog's name, named Sammy. But so
I have
we're
a friend
hoping
who walks out there regularly. I'll ask her.
Well, you know, Todd, Michael Barron has a dog named Sammy.
Yes, we know
So it's probably not Michael.
Michael has acknowledged that, but it is not his dog.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to committee updates. Let's see, who would like to start? Ted, do you have?
Nothing from the trustees of the trust funds for this,
Okay.
this meeting?
Carolyn?
Just the Bickford House getting approved and work to start on that. I think that's about it.
Okay,
Parks and Rec did not meet again,
okay,
so nothing from there.
okay. Yeah,
Yes, I have an update, and I hate to do this with Todd here, but at the last meeting, I made a statement that was incorrect, and I need to correct it. I had said that the town council had eliminated the funds for the survey to the Meadows property. And I remembered correctly that the vote was 5-4. I just remembered incorrectly which way it went. So that money is still in the budget
okay.
and should be used this year so that it doesn't, the same as the funds for the bridge, it doesn't revert to the unexpended fund and then not get put back in the budget.
Okay, it's
Okay.
specifically for Meadows?
Well, it was for surveying.
For surveying,
And so
yeah.
the next on the list is Meadows, but
Right.
we can, the plan is to continue to move along.
Yeah, I thought the next
far
on the
as it
plan was
goes.
Stolworthy. Have we done Stolworthy?
No.
No.
So, because that's the one that, in which we have actually, right now, the trouble with Meadows is that until the bridge goes down, I mean, doing a survey before the bridge goes down seems to me, I mean, the dam, the bridge, I'm
Yes.
too many bridges, yeah. The dam gets taken down, is that then you have to work out all the property lines from the new water line. So we were going to wait on Meadows until the dam went down. But Stallworthy, we do have at least a couple posts we can't find, and we didn't ever really have a survey of the property, I don't think. And we have a lot of neighbors and a lot of kids moving through and people wanting to start using the property from the school, so it would be good to have a survey and well-marked boundaries.
Sure.
And so maybe we could talk to,
What's the name of that?
the name
People
of
that
the
did
company.
Jackson.
Yeah, Stake and Stone survey.
Stake and Stone Survey, and get an estimate from them.
Paul, what's his last name?
So just a point of clarification, Daryl, in the December minutes, it says that the money for surveying the meadows was removed.
Right, but it wasn't.
So should that be corrected then in the minutes?
No, because
Well, no,
because
she
the
actually
minutes are
said-
accurate.
She said that
That's
in the
what I said.
minutes.
Oh, I thought you said.
He
it was
said, that's what
incorrect.
he said, but what he said was wrong, but
So now in these
the
minutes, it will
minutes,
correct.
yeah, but in this minutes, we correct it.
I see. Yeah, I understand. Gotcha.
So,
I mean, I suppose to eliminate confusion, it might be possible in the approved minutes to just put a little annotation. This was incorrectly stated,
Yeah.
corrected next month.
yes,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
it happens.
Beat on me again.
Okay, I just lost my train of thought.
So we finished up with the survey.
So we finished with the
and talked
survey,
about
and
Stillwood.
you can talk to, talk to, I think we may have even, well, no, we wouldn't have suggested it to them. We were looking to see about how Jackson, did we get the report yet on Jackson's Landing?
It's still,
Have you seen anything,
I s-
Rachel?
No, I spoke with the surveyor from Stakes and Stones, and he said it was in process.
Okay.
So it's not done.
All right. Oh, Rich, before you go, do you think you'll be able to make February meeting? Can I set up something about, I want to discuss in February, and I'll bring this up with the invasive policy. Do we have it? What is it?
Oh, yeah, we have a, if you go on our website and you look on the right-hand side, it'll show you right-of-way vegetation management program. And there's a lot of information on that, and I'm willing to be here in February and review some
Oh,
of that.
that'd be great, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. So just to explain that conversation, I got a note from Beryl, oh, good God, I can't believe I just lost her last name.
Beryl Harper?
Harper, thank you, who was actually on the Conservation Commission and was one of the drivers getting the initial 4 properties surveyed, the initial management plan we had on Wagon Hill, Long Marsh, Weeks, and Doe. And she is now at Fitz Farm, living at Fitz Farm, and is the chair of one of their, what is the management group called, at a condominium association. And she had written me a letter asking what the town policy on invasives is, because they've done a lot of work. They have that big wetland area sort of in between some of the different groups of houses. And at one point, I remember we had them, they came in, or whoever was working on it at the time, and discussed the management they were doing on the pond, that they had gotten a grant from, I believe, NRCS, but I could be wrong. So they've done a lot of work on invasives in Fitz Farm, and she was wondering what our policy on our invasives, how we, what we just, she has questions. And I thought, well, this is something that Sarah and I had talked about, that there doesn't seem to be, we don't really have, we do sort of a property by property management of invasives, but we haven't really got a policy or a plan. We haven't looked at, in terms of the entire group of properties we have, and thought about, like, when do we, when don't we? So I thought this would just be a good chance to have a conversation. So I invited her to come to speak to us. Wanted to make sure Rich would be here. So I thought I would do that as a item in February. And this isn't to make any decision about. This is really starting a conversation. So if you, Ted, you have, a way of looking at invasives, definitely at Doe Farm, and we have, we work on invasives at Oyster River Forest, we work on invasives that, well, really off and on throughout the town. But so that would be my idea for one of the items in February on the agenda. And Beryl had said that she could make it. She and the person who is sort of the chair of their work group on property invasives.
From my standpoint, I think, in addition to just like managing what's there, I think one thing that could use just a look at is what do we do to prevent the spread of invasives? And, mowing along town right-of-ways, and if you mow along, get the mowing along a road, and then DPW takes that same equipment and takes it out to Wagon Hill to mow the fields, you've just spread invasives from roadsides to Wagon Hill,
Wow.
right? And vice versa. There's invasives at Wagon Hill that you'll spread to meadows and meadows to other places. And so there's some basic practices that it's unclear to me whether those are advocated for or there's routine use of. And I know Veronique can probably also do some kind of, I would just come prepared to like think about like what kind of practices do we want to advocate in town or educate people in town. I know that we've done garlic mustards. I wrote something for Friday updates. I think that gets published every kind of in the spring because we do garlic mustard poll with the middle school kids out at Stolworthy. And so that's kind of, you can, how much of that do you want to include? And a lot of people that I've talked to don't understand that when you pull garlic mustard, you have to put it in a trash bag. And then that you have to let it sit for a couple weeks on the side of your yard, which is an eyesore. And then it can be disposed of at the town dump. And that is something that I reviewed with Rich Rain last spring to ensure that process. So vegetation as a norm cannot go in a regular dumpster, but invasive species can by state law, and Rich confirmed that. So, there's all these other practices that I think would be good for just for people to understand.
Yeah, for education, yeah.
Both from an educational standpoint, but also from a town practice too.
Okay. Great. And I also thought we could probably write to some of our other local towns and see what they do. Ask them if they have specific policies.
I don't think we finished going around.
Oh, we haven't. No. I just wanted to make sure it clear why I was speaking to Rich as he walked out the door. Okay. Are you done, Darryl?
Yes.
Okay.
Durham Agricultural Commission, nothing to report this time.
Okay, from the Conservation Commission, we continue to work on the updated Wetland Shoreland Overlay District ordinance and going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we actually made some pretty good progress over the last meeting. So probably won't finish it in the February meeting, but I'm hoping by the March meeting we will have gone through it, everybody got their comments in, and then we'll be ready to take it to the planning board as the next step. The other thing that happened in our last meeting was we had an application by a homeowner on Riverview Court off of Route 4, and he has property that borders the Oyster River, and almost his entire property is within the wetland buffer. And so he had come to the Conservation Commission the month previous with kind of a sketchy, which almost looked like a hand-drawn plan of what he wanted to do, which was add a shed, add an addition, make a circular driveway, make improvements to a retaining wall. And the commission was really displeased because he didn't account for any thing that would happen in terms of runoff because he was so close to the Oyster River. So one of the folks on the commission said that this is not up to the level that we need in order to take a look at it. And to the homeowner's credit, he went back and he hired an engineer, and he came back the following month with really detailed plans. We took a look at it, and one of the things I thought was interesting was that to handle a lot of the extra runoff, he included a pretty sizable rain garden, which I thought was, a pretty innovative way. I guess it's kind of standard on some properties, but in the time I've been on the Conservation Commission, I hadn't seen a plan with it, so I just thought I'd share that as an interesting point.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
There isn't any, to my knowledge, rules about having to maintain a rain garden once you put it in. And I know that those of you who walk from the parking lot that's it's across from the bank, there's a little lane there that goes sort of towards the health center that is sort of, well, it was originally a stone path, because that little lane had been there forever. So when they did the construction of that new apartment building there, which isn't new anymore, they put in a rain garden and a stone path. The stone path is obliterated. There is a sign now saying this is not taken care of, so beware. And there is a rain garden, which among things has at least the last time I looked, an air conditioner sitting in the middle of it. So there's been no taking care of this rain garden, which was part of the plan. So my problem with rain gardens, I think rain gardens are great, but a rain garden has to be maintained. And to my knowledge, there's no rules that say you have to maintain the rain garden once it gets put in. And there are quite a few that I've seen, over the years. When I was on the Conservation Commission, we approved a number of them. And there's a number of the ones that I was on the commission, and you all approved the plan. We didn't specifically approve the rain garden. We approved the plan, which included the rain garden. The rain gardens are not, to my eyes, being taken care of. So it seems to me that when we put something like that in a plan, and of course the same thing happens with septic systems and all. We know we approve these complicated systems, but we don't necessarily then say you have to show us yearly that you've had it looked through and it's still functioning. So that would be something to think about with your wetlands permit thing, that maybe that should include some kind of arrangement where they have to affirm that they're taking care of the rain garden.
Almost
That's a good
always
point.
they do have that provision.
Yeah.
They do, already. The problem is that who's going to go out there and enforce it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I know because we have 9 rain gardens in Pearly Lane.
Right.
And all of them have, when they were approved, it said, you have to maintain this, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it specifically says that, the town is going to check on this. Well, the town doesn't have the resources to check on it. I mean, they're all fine. But, so it isn't just, getting something in writing that they're going to have to, do this. It's the follow-up that's the issue, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't think there's a solution to that, I really don't.
Darryl, I just want to say that's pretty much true of any, ordinance that you put into place. You can have it and you can say that it has to be followed, but without the staff to, go around and monitor, I think it's going to be pretty much impossible to enforce.
Well, you can have a means by which the landowner has to give something to the town that says it's been.
That's what it says on ours.
And
Nothing
because
ever
all
been given
you
the
have to
town.
do on that is there has to be somebody at the town that looks at whatever's and sees who's handed it in and then sends them.
Yeah, but there's an awful lot of those. Every plan approved by the, Thank you, sir.
My apologies.
every plan approved by the planning board has those kinds of requirements, everyone. And to follow up on all of them, keep track of all of them, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the problem with rain gardens.
Could you define a rain garden? This is a new term to me, sorry.
Well, so it's a depression in the ground which water drains into and which has plants to help maintain to actually drink up the water and also.
And nutrients
the
that would
nutrients.
otherwise run off.
Yeah,
That's its purpose.
yeah, so it's a means of taking in run water and helping to clean out the run water.
And if I can add to that isn't there normally some type of drainage pipe that runs from wherever it is that you're taking the water from underground and then empties out into the rain garden? So in this
Sometimes.
case, it was...
Sometimes, depending on where the water's coming from that's going into the rain garden. Yeah, sometimes it's just its position takes in the water.
None of the ones in our neighborhood have a culvert coming into them. They just are in a depression, and the surrounding
okay.
land is graded towards it so that the water goes there rather than running off
There's also
into the
usually,
creek.
there's
What?
also usually some change in the base material so that the water
Always.
can be drained relatively quickly. But there's a great resource, Soak Up the Rain, and there's actually an organization, are they run out of Great Bay, or associated with Gibner? But that, if you want to learn more, that's the website I just clicked on, and I just got it other time, and I'm so sorry. But it's called Soak Up the Rain, and it's associated with the EPA. And they have different programs throughout the country, so you can check that out.
Okay, like, I don't know, do we still have Rachel?
No, I think she left.
Oh, sorry, I should have, oh, there she is.
Oh.
Oh, there you are. Rachel, do you have anything to add from Parks and Rec?
Yes, so, we have another series of Discover Durham's Trails. Sarah and Aaron from the Conservation have got together a little schedule here, so still finalizing details, but it looks like at this point we will have something on Sunday, February 16th at West Foss Farm, and then another outing on Friday, March 14th from 6:30 to 8:30 with a midwinter moonwalk and owl identifications.
That sounds
Great.
cool.
So I think Emma Tutin from Cooperative Extension is doing a wildlife tracking walk on that Sunday in February. And then did I say it was at West Foss Farm? And then the moonwalk will be at Oyster River Forest.
Oh, okay, great.
I just sent the flyer over to Erin to just have a peek at it, so once she gives the green light on that, we'll get it out, so start promoting it.
Awesome. Okay, any other comments from anyone? Okay, if not, I will take a motion to dismiss.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, starting with Marty?
Marty Gorms, aye.
Ted Howard, aye.
Carolyn Singer, aye.
Gail Carey, yes.
Ann Welsh, yes?
Darrell Ford, aye.
John Carroll, aye.
Neil Slepian, yes.
Okay.